Всем привет! Okay, we're continuing with our marathon, and if you watched my previous video where we looked at the grammar terms, you know that today we're still staying kind of like in English. We're not discussing anything in Russian or about Russian, but we're gonna look at the structure of a text that I selected for you, and that's Diary of the Wimpy Kid, and we're gonna look at the sentences and figure out whether the sentence is simple or complex, whether a word is an adjective or an adverb, whether you know what's a noun, and so on. We also look at these charts a little bit. Next videos will work with them in more detail to kind of like figure out which chart to use for which type of word. Okay, let me switch screens. You won't see me. It's going to be my desktop camera, and we are going to go through these examples.
If you like it, please click like. If it's useful, drop a line. If you love it, hit subscribe. Like me, подпишись и комментарий напиши.
Okay, so here is our text, and here are the charts I will be referring to, but once again, there will be separate videos on how to work with the charts. Okay, first of all, we're gonna read the sentence and figure out if it's a complex sentence or a simple sentence, because complex sentences contain several simple sentences, and each sentence usually has the subject of a sentence in nominative, and then the verb also, the form of the verb depends on the subject. Okay. My family was living in a really small apartment back then, and I had to share a room with Roderick. So as you can see, we have two distinct ideas. The first one is, my family was living in a really small apartment back then. And the subject of a sentence is my family, because who was living in a really small apartment back then? My family was. And then we have and, connecting this sentence to this sentence. I had to share a room with Roderick. Who had to share a room with Roderick? It wasn't my family, it was I. So that would be the subject of a sentence, of the second sentence. So now let's take a look at the words in the sentence. So here we have my family, and that's our subject. Family is a noun, and it actually is a feminine noun, семья, ending in ya. And once we translate it, that will be the nominative case. Now, my is a possessive pronoun, so we would be using the chart for adjectives and possessive pronouns. In this specific context, my goes with family, so it will agree with it with gender number case. So for my, since family is singular feminine nominative, we will be looking for the singular feminine nominative for my. So that would be right here, моя семья. Here we have in a really small apartment. Here is our sandwich, a small apartment. And here is the word really. It ends in ly, so that's our adverb. And we love, love, love it because we just look up this word. We do not need any charts for the adverbs. We just look it up and that's our word. For a small apartment, they have to figure which one is a noun, and that's the a or an apartment, because we can say an apartment or the apartment. And small is an adjective that goes with the word apartment and agrees with it in gender number case. Apartment in Russian is kvartira, and that's a feminine noun ending in a. In a small apartment gives us the context of location, which is the prepositional. So we would need feminine prepositional for apartment. So the ending will be somewhere here. Then small is our adjective. If you look up small, the default form will be masculine because these are our default endings. So from that, we will go to feminine prepositional. So we'll go to feminine prepositional to look for the ending that we need to go with the word small in Russian. Then we have back then. And I said in my previous video, if you can say a back or the back, that means it's your noun. But here in this context, it's clearly not a reference to a part of body like my back hurts, but to a time reference back then. And if you put a back then or the back then, it just doesn't work. So that's not our noun, it's our adverb. We just look it up and put it right here if we need to translate. We do not need any charts for that. So in here we have the second sentence. I had to share a room with Roderick. Who had to share a room with Roderick? I had. So that's our nominative. Я должен был. I know there are other ways to translate I had to. We'll just go with the basic ones. So I is our subject and nominative. And here we have other nouns. So we have I is a personal pronoun, and we have a room, and we have Roderick. So for these words, we need to use the chart. Now, before I go into that, we have the word share. Now, if you just put the word share into a translator or like an online dictionary, it might give you a translation for a noun, because in English you can also say a share or the share as a noun, like in investment. But share is also a verb. So when you're looking it up, make sure to look up the verb form. Put to share into the dictionary rather than just share. So here we have a room or the room. So that's clearly our noun. Once you figure out the case for the word room in this context, that you will be looking for it in this chart. And Roderick is a personal name or is a person's name. In Russian, we treat it as a noun too. So it ends in a consonant, so it's a masculine word. So once you figure out the case for Roderick, the ending will be somewhere here. Okay, here's our next sentence. Let's read it, and you tell me, I mean, it's clearly so big, it's a complex sentence. You tell me how many simple sentences it contains. He got the crib, so for the first few months of my life, I had to sleep in the top dresser drawer, which I'm pretty sure isn't even legal. So we already see he and I and I. So it like probably your first reaction is to say we have 3 sentences here. And you kind of would be right, because these are 3 separate ideas. But we actually have 4 separate ideas here. First one is he got the crib. And here's our subject. Who got the crib? He did. So that's our subject, and it's a personal pronoun. He, we can say Roderick, yeah? So that's our personal pronoun. He got the crib. So the crib is clearly a noun. So once we figure out the case for what he got the crib. So we would be using the chart for nouns. So that's our first idea. The second one, so that's our connector to the next idea. For the first few months of my life, I had to sleep in the top dresser drawer. Who had to sleep in the top dresser drawer for the first few months of my life? I had. That's our subject. And again, there are different ways to translate this specific, phrase into Russian. We'll go with the basic one that uses I in nominative. Я должен был. So that's our noun here. So that had to will go in form with the subject of a sentence. Everything else will be in a different case. So let's take a look. Here we have our first sandwich, the first few months. The months is our noun, and then first few is our filling. Few in Russian is once you look it up, this is actually an adverb, so it will not change. But first is our adjective, and it will agree in the gender number case with the word months. So months is a noun, and it's plural. And here we have for the first few months. So we'll figure out the case for the word months, and we'll find the ending here. And then the word first, if you look it up, it again will be in the default masculine form in the dictionary, but we will need to look for the plural form, and whichever case we come up for months, that will be the corresponding case for the word first. Then we have of my life. So that's our next kind of like mini sandwich, bread and bread, my life. So after of, I'm just telling you, we will be using genitive. So life will be in genitive. So that will be feminine noun, жизнь, actually ends in the soft sign, and we'll be looking for the genitive ending. And then my, we go to this adjective and pronouns chart. Remember, for my family, we just looked up the nominative feminine. Here, we're going to be looking up feminine genitive for моя, because here my agrees with the noun that's in genitive, also feminine, but in genitive. So that form of my will be different from that my. because the words they go with are in different cases. Okay, and then we have I had to sleep, and again, just like with to share, to sleep, make sure to look up to sleep rather than just sleep, because it can be a noun too. And then we have in the top dresser drawer, and that's our sandwich. The dresser drawer, that's our noun, and in Russian this is one word. And then the top is gonna be an adjective that agrees in gender number case with the word dresser drawer. So so for dresser drawer, you'll be looking up the noun chart in a specific case. Top, same case, but under adjectives. And again, top can be a noun too. Yeah, like the top. And again, when you're looking up this word for this specific phrase, for this specific chunk, you have to look for the adjective form that will add in one of these things. It actually will be actually will end in e, верхний, but again, we'll have to look for a noun for a specific case. So here we have, which I'm pretty sure isn't even legal. Does feel like one sentence, but it actually has two separate ideas. Which isn't even legal. What isn't even legal? Which. So there are again different ways to translate it into Russian, but if we follow the logic, this would be the subject of this part of the sentence, which isn't even legal. And then we have I'm pretty sure. Who is pretty sure? I am. That would be our little subject here. And again, there are different ways to translate it. One of them might have I as a subject of a sentence, like я думаю, or я почти уверен, and some might not. It's something like мне кажется, which will put it into dative. But let's not go into translating just yet. The main idea is that that's how we have to think about the sentences. All right, let's move on here. Eventually, Dad moved his work stuff out of the room he was using as an office and made it into a nursery. So here we have, again, let's decide if it's complex or simple, and it's complex. So our first word ends in ly. It's kind of like the introductory word eventually. And ly we love, 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 because it's our adverb, so we don't really need to worry about any charts here. Adverbs don't change. Now what's going on here is Dad moved his work stuff out of the room he was using as an office and made it into a nursery. So we have a pretty big simple sentence here. Dad moved his work stuff out of the room and made it, the room, into a nursery. So Dad moved and Dad made. So Dad is the subject for this kind of very long, simple sentence that still includes two different ideas, but still has one subject. And then the second idea, he was using it, the room, as an office. So when we're translating the sentence into Russian, moved and made, the form of these words will go with the subject of a sentence, Dad. And then other, nouns and pronouns in the sentence will be in a different case. So here we have Dad moved his work stuff, and here is our subject. Here is our sandwich. His work stuff, his stuff, the stuff. That's our noun. His is a determiner, and work, even though it can be a noun, here it's an adjective. So again, when you look up the word work to translate this specific thing, you look up the adjective form, рабочий. Now, his, let's take a look. So his is like our my, my, your, his, her. Now, if we look at the chart for adjectives, you can see that it only includes pronouns my, your, our. It does not include his, even though it's also a possessive pronoun. Why? Because his, her, their, we love, 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 because they never change. They stay the same in all cases, all genders. So here, once you see his as part of like his stuff, his life, and so on, that will be just его. We love, love, love it. So again, stuff, when we translate it into Russian, it's going to be a noun. And in this case, stuff in English is singular, but in Russian, it's plural, вещи. So we will be looking for forms right here. And then work, as I said, would be an adjective that agrees with the gender number case with the word stuff. So once you figure out how to say work as an adjective, and that would be рабочий, you would be looking for a plural form in a specific case, whichever case you decide for the word stuff. Then we have out of the room. Here we have the room. It's clearly a noun. It's clearly a noun, so we'll be looking for the form here. And room is комната, feminine. And I'll just very quickly say out of a room will be genitive. So we'll be looking at like genitive feminine endings for the word комната. Then we're going to forget about this part for a while, because remember, it's our separate sentence, and made it into a nursery. It is a personal pronoun, like he, she, it. And in Russian, so here's our chart for personal pronouns. And in Russian, all three words, on, оно, and она, can be translated as it. So we have to decide when we see it, what word does it replace? And in this context, it replaces the word room, because he made that room, the room, into a nursery. So it will go with the word room, which means, and as I said, room is feminine, комната. So feminine goes, oops, I'm sorry. So feminine комната is она. So that's our it. But remember, we already have the nominative right here. So it will not be just она. It will be a different case. So he made it, meaning it was made. So this it is our accusative. So we will be looking for она in the accusative case. Oh, look, it's the same as genitive. So right here. Yeah, we don't have any u here or any other preposition, so that will be our form. So for instance, он превратил ее, made as in like transformed, превратил ее. So that would be our it in Russian in this specific context. And then we have into a nursery. A nursery, the nursery, that's our noun. So once again, we would be using, oh, wait, I wanted to say we be using the chart for nouns, but if you look up the word nursery, you will see a very interesting thing, that it ends in aya, детская, and that's an adjective ending. So right here, I have a note that some nouns look and change like adjectives. For instance, ученый, ванны, do not use this chart for them. So even though, like conceptually, it's a noun, they would still be changing like adjectives. For the word детская, we would be using these endings depending on what case we have here. Okay, so let's go back to this part. He was using implied room as an office. Who was using the room as an office? He was. So that's our subject, that's our nominative. He, meaning dad, or whatever we can say, John. So that's, again, our personal pronoun on. Yeah, so he, clearly, here is masculine here because it's dad. He was using it, meaning the room, as an office. So an office is our noun. And again, once we figure out the case, we will be looking up the forms right here. Okay, here is our next sentence. I got Roderick's old crib and he got a new bed. So here we have, clearly, we can see two separate sentences. Who got Roderick's old crib? I did. Who got a new bed? He did. So here is our subject 1, nominative, subject 2. I is our personal pronoun я, and he, in this case, Roderick, right? Yeah, Roderick is on, because we're clearly talking about a male person. Now, what we got is Roderick's old crib. Here is kind of like our modified sandwich. So here, the crib, a crib, the crib is our noun, and an old is our adjective that goes with the word crib and gender number case. But here, instead of the determiner like the, or yeah, we can say I got the old crib, or I got this old crib. But then instead of the word this or the, we have Roderick's. And here is our Roderick apostrophe S. And you remember, apostrophe S words are genitive, unless we're talking about somebody's name or somebody's place. So here we have a great example of genitive. Yeah, so with the apostrophe S possession. And remember, when you translate this word, and it's going to be in genitive, it's gonna follow the word old crib. So in Russian, we would say, I got old crib of Roderick's. So in Russian, once you figure out this genitive, it goes after the item that the person owns. Okay. And here we have and that connects these two sentences. He got a new bed. Again, he is our subject because who got a new bed? He did. He got a new bed. A new bed is our classic sandwich. A bed, that would be our noun. New is our adjective that goes with the word bed and agrees with it in gender, number, and case. So for the word bed, we would be using a noun. And for the word new, we will be using the noun in the same gender, number, and case as the word bed. Okay, let's take a look at the very last sentence. Almost everything I had back in those days was a hand-me-down from Roderick. So here we have something that looks like one sentence, but if you look closely, it really is a complex sentence that includes two ideas. Almost everything was a hand-me-down from Roderick. What was a hand-me-down from Roderick? Everything was. And the second idea I had back in those days. Who had something back in those days? I did. So I know it's starting to get tricky, but believe me, it's two separate ideas. We can have two separate verbs that go with different subject. That was goes with everything, and had goes with I. Similarly, when you translate it into Russian, that's how it will, appear. Okay, so here we have almost everything was a hand-me-down from Roderick. So almost is an adverb, so we don't worry about translating it. And the word everything, on my charts, it's right here. Всё. Всё, and then how it changes. Now, we won't need to change it because it's the subject of a sentence, so we will stay under nominative. There is our всё. But if you needed to change it in other context, you would be using this part of the chart. Now, everything was a hand-me-down. Now, here, remember, when we say something was, like everything is a hand-me-down, it will be nominative, nominative. But everything was or will turn into instrumental case. So once you figure out how to say hand-me-down in Russian, you would be using the chart for nouns, and you will be looking for the instrumental case. Now, the word hand-me-down is actually a plural in Russian, obnoski, and you would be kind of like in this part of the chart. And then from Roderick, again, Roderick will be in a specific case, and we will be using the chart for nouns. And remember, Roderick ends in a consonant, so we'll be using these endings once we figure out the case here. Now let's go back to this I had back in those days. As I said, it's a separate kind of like sentence, even though it looks a little bit odd. But remember how we were applying the logic before? Who had everything as a hand-me-down back in those days? I had. That would be the subject of a sentence, and the subject of a sentence does the action, so it's a nominative. But remember, I told you, be very careful with the constructions when we have something or had something or will have something, because whoever has something is gonna be a genitive case, and there will be a preposition u in front of it. So that word I, which is our personal pronoun, will not be ya. Because of that construction to have, we will need to go to genitive. In this case, we will use it with u, or like in this context, we will use u plus меня. У меня. Все, что у меня было. Okay, and the only thing we have left here is in those days. Now that in those days we can translate as one adverb, тогда, which is like back then, but we can also translate it literally in those days into Russian. Now, days is our noun, so we'll be looking up forms here. And then those is our pronoun, and we will be looking it up here. That, those is a part of that, yeah, like that, those, and that will be plural. So here we have the forms for those right here. Probably I should put these, these, and that, those, but yeah, maybe I'll do it when I update it again. But here we have those right here. Now, I will tell you that in those days, it will be in plus the time reference in accusative and the word. So let's take a look. So accusative, plural, if it can look you in the eye. So if it's animate, it will be the same as genitive. But if it cannot look you in the eye, if it's not animate, it's the same as nominative. The word days is definitely like nominative. And the word will be dni. So we'll say v, dni, and then those we will be using again, yeah, so the same in this nominative or genitive, like те, в те дни, в те дни. Okay, I think I covered pretty much everything. I was trying to show you the logic of kind of like figuring out grammar in Russian when you go from English into Russian. So hopefully that was helpful. Let's stop here. All right, that video has gotten a little bit longer than I thought it would be, but I still hope it was useful. So your homework for next time is kind of like twofold task. First one, grab anything that's written in English and try to kind of like think about it in terms of what I was doing with this example. And then select a sentence and put it in the comment and kind of like show me your logic, like where you figured out if it's complex or if it's simple, where the subject would be, if there's a noun or an adverb or an adjective in that sentence, and so on. So put it in the comments to kind of like check your logic, whether you understood it. So the second part of the task is kind of like to prep you for what's coming in the next video. So we're starting to work with these charts. So in the next video, we're going to be working with the charts for nouns, and I'm going to link it in the description to this video. So what I want you to do is to select any noun in Russian that you want. So for instance, some of the things that we'll be working with is going to be the word student or семья, подруга. And just like try to figure it out yourself first. Like, how does it work? How does this chart work in terms of how the words change in plural and in all different cases? And that's what my next video is going to be about. All right, keep learning, and I'll see you in my next video. Пока-пока.